The family of Archie Battersbee are seeking legal permission from the High Court to move him from hospital into a hospice. He was found unconscious at his home in Essex in April after suffering a catastrophic brain injury, and doctors believe that he is brainstem dead. Archie's mother, Hollie Dance, has been fighting to keep her son on life support, but after her case was rejected by the European Court of Human Rights yesterday, she now wants her son to have a dignified passing in a hospice. And that is understandably so, isn't it, David?
I mean, it is. I was on air. We broke the news from the European Court of Human Rights. It's a human tragedy, actually, for not only the family, but actually, I think, also for the medical teams involved. And I actually felt incredibly emotional about the whole thing. This is a young child, you know, had his life ahead of him and suffered a tragic accident. And, of course, we've seen it go through multiple courts. We've seen it go through the European Court of Human Rights. And the family are doing everything they can to keep him with them. Now, the flip side of that, of course, is that I'm a medic, I'm a doctor. I have to be guided by what the medics are telling me. He has been declared brainstem dead, and obviously that means that they believe that treatment should be withdrawn. Now, when I looked further into the case and I spoke to some of the team, he is in a very fragile and unstable state. So what happens next is once that permission is granted, if it is granted, then you have to extubate, which means removal of all the medical equipment, and that is going to be a very difficult time. Now, the worry is if you move him in that condition with all of the, you know, the IV lines attached and everything and the ET tube attached, he could well die immediately. And I think, therefore, as long as the hospital can provide, you know, some sort of solace and a quiet room away from the hustle and bustle of the ward, I think that would be OK.
But why did they have to take all the tubes out? Is there no way of actually having, I don't know, the bed itself? I mean, I'm just sort of extrapolating, but, you know, is there really no way of taking the whole thing out and into an ambulance, into a hospice?
When you ventilate someone and when you give them drugs and when you have IV lines in, it's very aggressive, invasive. And what you're doing is trying to let someone die peacefully by withdrawing treatment and letting them die naturally. And therefore, you have to withdraw that treatment, and that is what they're looking for.
And presumably without pain, because, of course, you have this sort of real struggle between the parents who perhaps see an element of hope and therefore want everything to be done, combined with the medics who will say, this is the reality of the situation. As a medic, what are you thinking of? Are you thinking about the parents and how they say goodbye, or are you thinking about how on earth do you let somebody die with the least possible pain?
It's a great question. It's a really good question, and you think of both, but ultimately you're responsible for the patient, and I think you have to let this poor boy die in dignity and not in pain.
But then I think from his mum's perspective, I think his mum's been so brave. She's fought for what she thinks is correct and right the whole time.
Of course.
And for her, the dignity for Archie is for him to die in a hospice away from the hospital.
But let's just go back to what the medics say, what the judges have said, and they believe that it is right that you know, he is allowed not to suffer and to be in that hospital. Let me just tell you what Barts Health NHS Trust has said. They're responsible, obviously, for treating Archie. They believe, and this reiterates what I said, his condition is too unstable to be moved, and that if he was to be moved, it could most likely hasten the premature deterioration that the family wish to avoid. So by moving him, they're very worried it would not go well.
But you can understand the parents. You have to understand where they're coming from after such a long battle for him to stay alive, you know, looking at alternative treatments and how they might work or may not work. And it seems that, you know, although we do have some statements from the doctors and obviously the trust, you know, they're trying to preserve Archie's privacy as much as possible. And I do feel like there's more to this that probably we'll learn later on. But what I see is a mother fighting so hard for her child. You know, you never want to see your child in that state, and you never think you're going to be going to the European Court of Human Rights or the United Nations or any of that. You know, you just think of when you bore that child, when they were 6, when they fell off their bike.
So I've been through this as a
difficult.
family. My cousin died. We had to grant permission for treatment to be withdrawn. It was the worst thing we've ever done. But you have to make decisions, and I think actually ultimately for the parents this will be a sense of closure, and I know the team will handle it sensitively.
Well, our thoughts are, of course, with Archie's family and friends tonight.